Hello everyone, I'm Armstrong Williams and welcome to another Town Hall. A very interesting topic this evening. There's so much about education in our country today, and there's this debate that that is brewing as to whether or not colleges and universities are the best places for kids. Not everyone learns the same, and not everyone wants the same, and they're not inspired to do the same thing. You know, it's interesting for me, when I was growing up in Marion, South Carolina, and welcome to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which is about 40 minutes from my home, where I grew up in Marion. And so we're back home with our WWMB-21 affiliate. When I was growing up, I had an opportunity to take carpentry and welding before ever going off to college. You know, this is just how much the world has changed. And I'm going to get to it later about whether or not those disciplines, what you would call technical skills, played any role in my success and my development, particularly early on in my life. But we're at Horry Georgetown Technical College. They've been very generous to us over the years when we would have our town hall meetings. They're very generous in hosting us. And what we wanted to do tonight is just take a technical college, Horry Georgetown Technical College, and invite their top brass from the same technical college to talk about this issue tonight: a technical education versus a college four-year education, and what is best and what works. And for someone like me as an employer, a technical education may work because you're in a specific discipline, you work in that discipline, you're trained in that discipline, you become an expert in that discipline. But the issue is whether or not, as the job market and the economy changes and those skills that you've acquired for that discipline no longer work, sometimes it can be played to a grave disadvantage to you. And so we want to have this conversation really about young people and what they're trying to do and what they're choosing, because the job market is very complicated. And the four-year education is just not working, the degrees anymore. A lot of these kids are finding themselves working at McDonald's. So let me introduce our very distinguished panel from Horry Georgetown Technical College. Professor Renee Causey, you are Assistant Chair of Human Services.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for joining us. Professor Daniel Hoppy, you're the Director of Distance Learning at this college, and so a lot of questions to ask you. I don't know too much about whether that Phoenix Learning and Education, that internet learning, is the same as what took place in the classroom when I was in the four-year college, but there's much to ask you tonight. And we're very honored to have Dr. Marilyn Ford, who's second in command here at Horry Georgetown Technical College. She's the Senior Vice President of the college. We welcome you as a first-time guest, all of you, to our show. And last and certainly not least, Professor Ann Daniels, Chair of the Department of Nursery. You know, so when you think about, let me start with you, Ms. Ford. You know, when you think about a technical education, there are a lot of things you have to consider. Sometimes these kids have families, they have children, they don't have the necessary time that is required for a four-year education. Sometimes a technical college education is from 9 months to 2 years, and certainly there's less money. But from your experience, are there statistics that you could actually look at and give us an overview exactly what happens to kids who took the technical college route versus the kids that took the four-year college route over the last 10 years, and what the results have been?
Well, I would say that students who have taken four-year college route, many of those students are coming back for training at the technical colleges. That word "many" can be quantitatively divided, but we have a lot of students who what was the bachelor's degree now requires a master's degree, and the universities are tending to go more into some technical training. So the students that are coming to us today versus those in the four-year institutions are pretty much of the same nature. They need the technical skills to work. In today's world, businesses will tell us that give us someone that has 50% of the technical skills and the rest give us the soft skills, the other kind of critical thinking skills. So the difference in the students today, 10 years later now, with the students in the skilled market from a technical college, still need to continue their training, probably as much more today as ever. And the same goes for students in the four-year institutions.
Okay, so this is a two-part question. I'm going to stay with you, Dr. Ford. You're the senior person on this panel. Okay, what has changed over the last 10 or 15 years that has made a technical education more critical than ever before?
Okay. What has changed is the economy. We've gone through a very serious period in the United States of a financial crisis. We had a great deal of outsourcing of jobs in America. And what has changed is that the workforce is coming back and being trained in the United States, and our young people, younger people, as well as those individuals that are in their 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s, all need similar technical skills to be able to go into the workforce, to be able to work with technology, to be able to work with other people, because the companies are desperately seeking a skilled workforce. So the difference 15 years ago we were thriving, and then in the next few years we were not thriving. We were losing students because the economy took a downturn, and the universities and the colleges together trying to find a way for the best training for the students in the United States. Come back around in the last 5 to 7 years, the jobs have come back to the United States. Our local economy and South Carolina's economy has grown exponentially, and with that has come the need for everyone, regardless of whether you're in a technical college or university, to have the skills to be able to have a good, secure career.
So how many of you have worked in a 4-year or postgraduate college university setting?
I have.
You have.
Mm-hmm.
So let me come to you. What is the difference between your students in the technical college and your students on the 4-year in college and university level?
I think Dr. Ford hit it head on. The students that I see in the technical college are students who have families. They're looking for particular skills to either advance themselves currently where they're working, or they need to get to work quickly, and they need exactly what they need for that job. In the technical college, the professors and the chairs and assistant chairs and all the people that work at the institution work closely with the community to find out what the community needs in terms of workforce, and we have advisory committees who actually advise us to teach the best practices in the classrooms so that when our students leave here, they're ready to go to work. In a 4-year institution, or in the institutions that I've seen that are 4-year, many of these students, some of them don't even know what they want to do. Some of them have been told by just society, this is the next thing for you to do and the best thing for you to do. So they may have not done research into how cost effective it might be to go to your institution first. And again, many of them are not, they don't have families, and this is just, they have longer term goals. Maybe they want to be attorneys, and a lot of them haven't researched, frankly, the cost, the difference in the cost.
Let me tell you what bothers me about what you just said, and so I need you to help us here. It seems to me is that if I'm an employer, which I am, if I'm looking at the collegiate track versus the technical track, what you're saying to me that the collegiate track has far more of a commitment. There's far more of a commitment than you would have as someone going into a technical college. And commitment is very important to an employer. Explain that for us.
It's not necessarily that they have more of a long-term commitment. It's just there's many opportunities in a technical college where you can go to work now. You can't, if you want to be an attorney, it requires a longer career. I mean, it requires more time in college. So it's not necessarily that there's a longer term commitment. It's just whatever the workforce is requiring, or whatever position that you want to obtain in society. Degrees depend on those positions. So depending on what you want to be would depend on what school you might elect to go to.
Professor Hoppy, how important is, how much of a role does financial rewards play into these decisions?
Financial rewards such as the end salary that a student would gain based on.
Yes.
I think students today realize that money necessarily isn't everything, especially those that are coming back to, say, a technical institution, if you will. They may have already been in the workforce and been in a career that wasn't a good fit for them, and they're realizing that finding the right career and gaining the most direct education to get that career is perhaps more rewarding than the bottom line. And so I think you are going to find students that aren't always focused on what that top dollar looks like, but what that long-term goal of happiness and that long-term goal of a self-fulfilling career looks like for them.
So, Professor Daniel, you're a teacher.
Yeah.
You're in the classroom. You get a chance to interact with these kids more often than many. What is it about the classroom that you can determine about the upward mobility of these kids, some of the struggles that they may come from, that they may face, their learning capabilities, and also whether they have the ability to want to go beyond the technical training that they have? Because listen, for any of us, I mean, basically, if we think about college, I mean, this is what I trained for 4 years. It's hard for me to remember almost 20 years later. I can barely remember what it was. Really, I can't. And I know we're not advocating here that we should not learn math and English and all those other important skills, but basically, I want to sort of get your thoughts about what these kids are. But basically, what is it really that colleges teaches you versus a technical school 20 years later that really matters? And I guess you would say those applied skills where you actually learn a discipline is quite different than what you would get 4 years in college.
Absolutely. I have the unique opportunity to work side by side with students. Along with the nursing faculty, we have labs and clinicals where we have 8 to 10 students with us. And they're with us from anywhere from 6 to 9 hours a day. During that time, we have an opportunity to teach them not only the skills, but also the professional attitudes that is necessary to enter into the workforce. And they're in the labs and the clinicals with us. They have an opportunity to, in a safe environment, to explore different techniques or skills, behaviors that they will soon be implementing in the workforce. We have the opportunity to not only work with them in our labs at the hospital bedside, but also we have tutoring for these students. Once we have identified, and we do have opportunities to meet with them in post-conferences, they also, midterm, they have to complete self-reflection assignments. And at that time, that's when we identify this student may be having some challenges. What can we do to make sure that this student is receiving all the support services necessary to be successful? And we have a team of faculty and also support services here at this college that is willing to help the student. And once the student is made aware of the resources, we call out, and not only while they're in the program, because you mentioned before, once they leave, you know, is this a short-term commitment or a long-term commitment? We are also encouraging our students to be prepared to enter into the workforce. And after that, we are also encouraging them to be lifelong learners. To be a member of the profession, you have to be committed to lifelong learning. So we continue to invite other universities and colleges to come into our classrooms to share opportunities for continuing their education. And again, that starts from the first semester that they're in our programs. We have support services such as career resource centers. They come into our classrooms and they make sure that our students are prepared by helping them develop resumes, creating career fairs, and reaching out into the community to make sure that those businesses and healthcare facilities that have needs share those with us, and that we are meeting the needs of the community. And the students are from these communities, so they have the opportunity to give back. And that's what makes it unique for me. I've had the opportunity this past semester to be an instructor for both a mother and a daughter. They graduated at the same time. So that tells you the non-traditional student, they're coming to the technical college. And we see that the 18, 19, 20-year-old all the way to the 50-year-old. And we feel like we are meeting their needs, and that's what makes our technical college unique.
Dr. Ford, describe for us, someone watching us live tonight across the country, describe the student without a doubt that belongs in a technical school, and describe the student that belongs in a college and university setting.
First, I want to say that I don't necessarily see a great divide between the two.
Well, you don't.
No, I do not.
Well, listen, it takes a different academic standard to get in a technical school than it does to get into a four-year college or university.
No, not necessarily.
Explain it, not necessarily.
Okay, sure. I'd love to explain that. Many of our programs, the entrance requirement is as rigorous as it is for a university. If a student is going into engineering, for example, or a student is going into a health science program, the requirement for those students to be accepted into those programs, same as a university. We really are the first 2 years of many universities and colleges. So the entrance to get into many of our programs is not that much different than the universities. We're more compact in what we give. We're required in associate degrees to offer the same kind of courses they do in the universities. 25% of the courses have to be in the general education, just like the universities. So a student, I'll tell you the demographics of our students compared perhaps to the demographics of a college or a university. The demographics of our students is typically middle, about 26, 27, 28 years old. Many times they are working full or part-time. There are more females that are coming back to college today. This is the trend. 60 to 70% of the students are female. 25% are minority students. And most of the students need some financial aid. That's not unlike a lot of students that enter colleges and universities. They may have some higher entrance scores on SATs or ACT, and the median age may be more like 18, 19, 20. We're all encouraged many times right after high school to go into a four-year senior institution. But there's not necessarily a real strong distinction between the kind of student that may come to us and may go to the university, which is a beautiful thing today in higher education, because the students who may have thought that four-year college or university was the only way for them to go, they can come with a technical community college and get their first 2 years and then go on seamlessly to a senior institution.
You know, so Dr. Hoppy, am I hearing Dr. Ford say, now this is interesting. If the average age is 26 or 27 or 28 years old, I think all of us can agree that when you go back to college, you've made a decision that you want an education. You want to improve your life, you want to improve your opportunities, your financial opportunities, and you want to set an example for your children, your grandchildren, and anybody else that I need that education. So it would seem to me that when you come back at that age, you are far more committed. All the other things that would distract you along the way would be far removed, and you're there to make the most of that education and and do it in such a timely fashion, because you already have commitments, you have families and other obligations. In other words, you're dealing with a mature adult.
You're dealing with a student that has made those conscious decisions, yes. Now the reality is regardless what point of life you come back to school, life happens. And so we have to be prepared, whether you're at a technical college or a four-year institution, to offer that level of support for students at any point in their path of education. And I think that's where some of the student resources that we have in place to support these students are there. So yes, they can come in with the highest level of commitment, but they still might have needs around tutoring services and other ancillary type student service type opportunities. And that's where I think specifically here at our institution, we do a really wonderful job of making those services available to support that commitment that those students have brought to the table.
So let's come back to commitment. So you're saying that maybe along the way, they squandered their education opportunities. And so somewhere along the way, they may need tutoring, specialized tutoring, to bring them up to speed. I'm just trying to figure out what you're actually saying.
No,
here.
what I'm saying is that regardless of any point.
Are you saying they're not mature? They could be just
No.
as immature as a 19 or 18-year-old?
No, I don't think maturity necessarily is the factor. It's the readiness, if you will. And again, there are certain levels of education, whether it be subjects that you have stronger points in. For example, myself, I was never a real strong student in math, and I could be the most committed student, but I still have a level of assistance that you might need. And so being able to have services like that available to our students is very important.
But would that be a greater challenge for somebody who's 26, 27, 28 years old?
Some people might look at it that way. I look at it as that is that commitment that they have, that they're recognizing that they might need some assistance, and they're willing to utilize the services that an institution would have available to them.
Dr. Ford, your comment?
I think coming back to school at that age, there's some insecurities. It's scary sometimes coming on a college campus. You haven't been in the classroom for a while. You're leaving what you normally do day in and day out for the past few years, maybe since you've left high school. And so I think the commitment, I think you're right about many times they are very committed, and that's why you mentioned earlier something that struck a chord, is that we have to be very deliberate about how we schedule so around people's lives so that they can work and raise their family. Why the online learning is becoming more popular. They're determined, but they're also perhaps a little more scared and timid, and they need the encouragement. And that's where I think technical colleges, community colleges, whatever you want to call us, are particularly good because of the faculty and the staff that have them in smaller groups, generally very caring about those students, and know that the success of those students, dedicated or not, is right there in their hands. And then if they get a less than dedicated student, because that student might be insecure, just really doesn't know for sure if I can make it, come back to school after being out 8, 9, 10 years. But then when they're in that classroom with students that are from 17 to 60, the magic comes alive because you've got they then can get it in their minds that they're now committed because somebody's there to help them to get that career and get out there and do what they want to do with their jobs, with their career, with their lives that they may have not had before. So they're committed because they've chosen a career, but they need some security from us to be sure that they pursue that career, they pursue that degree, complete it, and get into the workforce.
So Dr. Causey, what, from your experiences at the technical school, and this is for many across the country who are watching this show and their technical colleges and your communities, what disciplines in the technical colleges provide the best long-term opportunities for these young adults coming back to school, and why?
Well, Dr. Ford might be better equipped to answer that question.
But you're going to answer it.
I'll try to answer it.
You understand all that.
And the reason I say that is because I'm most
just do your best. Just
I'll do my best.
That's all we ask for.
I don't think I could actually say that there will be any program in the technical college that wouldn't be an advantage to a person who came. I mean, I'm under the criminal justice program. The human services program is part of the criminal justice program, and you see in the classroom officers who come in to get additional education so that they are able to provide best services to the community. Professor Daniels spoke about our nursing program where, I can be at the hospital and see a student from Horry Georgetown Technical College at my bedside that, they're out there practicing. In the human services program, I have interns all over the county working in nursing homes, working with group homes, working with young people, and they're excited about being in their career, they're passionate about what they're doing, and they go into these internships and field placements, and they actually get to practice and incorporate what they've learned with us in the program. And I can't think of a program at a technical college that especially those that provide.
Why is the particular discipline of culinary arts is booming so much with kids? What is it about culinary arts that resonates with young people?
We love food. No, well, especially in the South. I mean, and again, what would it be about culinary? I don't know what it would be about culinary arts in particular. I mean, in the South, of course, there's a big food industry here in Myrtle Beach. This is a tourist industry here.
It's national.
Restaurants everywhere.
The carpentry, the welding, but the culinary. Why is it that the culinary, Professor Daniels? Let's help her out.
Yeah, help me out, Professor Daniels.
Why does it resonate?
It's an art. I think it's an art, and it's popular. You can't turn on a TV channel today without coming across, you know, a chef competition. So, and our community is no different than any other, and we just happen to have one of the best chefs heading our program here at Horry Georgetown Technical College. But it is very popular, and it can be applicable to every programs. For example, I can have my nursing students go visit the culinary arts program because they need to know about nutrition.
Now, you just said something that's very, very insightful, but also can be very scary. When we were coming along, and most of you probably are much older than I am in this room, but I think we're of the same generation. When we were coming along, we did not have the beauty of TV and media to impact the disciplines of the sexy disciplines that we would go into, like the culinary arts. Ours was more rugged and old-fashioned. We found out what our gifts and our talents and our skills were, and we decided, my golly, this is what we're going to pursue. But what Professor Daniels just introduced to this conversation, that a lot of kids are caught up in the sensationalism, the media, food. You look at the Kardashians, you look at the Food Network, you look at all these different shows, and they believe they can become that because they assume because they love to eat, because they love to cook, then they can be successful at the culinary arts. My question to the panel, is that realistic? And can that be long-lasting? Professor Daniels, we'll come back to you.
It depends. It certainly can inspire our
But is it
society.
realistic?
Is it realistic? It depends upon the discipline. For example, many of the students enjoy watching Grey's Anatomy, for an example. Okay? And sometimes we can actually have them view one of the scenes in Grey's Anatomy, and then let's come back and let's talk about that. What would you do differently when you practice or if you encountered a patient with this same condition? So we can actually take that show and make it a learning experience for our students.
Well, then I need to ask you a different question.
Okay.
And that question is, how should you decide the career that you're going to pursue?
Well, let's hope that it begins in the high schools.
What is it that should happen in high school?
The high school guidance counselors, and we work closely with some of them in our area, and they've actually come to Horry Georgetown Technical College over the summers, should encourage their students to take tests to determine what they're interested in. And based upon those tests, we would be more than happy, and we do actually go and visit those high schools at their career fairs and their career days to share the different programs that we have here at Horry Georgetown Technical College. So first of all, I think it needs to begin not only high school but middle school. Okay, so in our public school systems, we need to make sure that students or that children understand that they can be a success, that they can become a positive member of society. That's where I think it needs to begin. And then working as a partnership with the high schools, as we do, we're on many advisory boards at our local high schools to go in and share our programs that we have here at Horry Georgetown Technical College. Make sure that those students are becoming prepared for entry-level programs here at our college. And I think that's where it begins.
You know, Dr. Ford, you know, I do want us to try to lay out a trajectory of how one comes to the conclusion or what is their purpose in terms of the career? What is it, the value that they're to add to the society? Because I believe that everybody is irreplaceable and everyone has a certain gift and talent that no one else has. Now, some people become a cop because their father was a cop. Some people become a firefighter because their father was a firefighter. Some become a teacher because someone they looked up to were a teacher because they like reading books. Someone knows exactly they want to become a doctor because they love blood. They love dissecting animals as a kid. You can see it in these kids early on. You know these things. Someone knows they want to become a nurse because they're very caring. They're very nurturing. So I want to come back to you. Is it more nurture or nature that develops this?
Mr. Armstrong, I think you answered the question very well through all that dialogue. I think that a lot of it is those that are in their families that influence their future. So if one has been a nurse, their mother's been a nurse, their mother's been a teacher, their father has been a policeman, a chef, many times that's an influence. And I think the media is an influence, just like you said. Contrary, like the CSI isn't anything like what it really is.
But I do enjoy the show.
I do enjoy that
I'm
show.
a fan.
Yeah. And I think that it's the fact that for us, because we reflect the economy, that the students coming from this area see the professions in this area, see the people that they want to follow the paths after. And so it's, who do they want to be like? What do they have a hankering to do, if you will? Well, they want to put their hands on something, or they want to race ahead in the arts and the sciences, or they want to do some digital arts or technology. So I think it's part of what they live in every day, and what their friends are, and what their families have been. I think it's, you stated it very well in the very beginning, it's a blend. I don't think there is any one thing, and it could be that both have caused a student to select a particular profession. We have, just one other thing I will say, one of the largest clusters of programs that we have here is in the health sciences. And when you question a student, why are you in health science? Because I care for people, I want to take care of people. And so that is a vision that they have, that if they get into the health science, they go into nursing, they become an EMT, they go into pharmacy, they go into phlebotomy, these programs, it gives them an opportunity to do something where they're helping somebody. And that's one of our largest sectors. So I think that has a lot to do with the career that one chooses.
You know, we're going to give another side to this conversation. You can tell we're unscripted here, right? It's the beauty of this show. No one is prepared for it, especially me. But I do want to say this. You know, my trajectory from early on as a writer, oratory, business, media, hotel ownership, TV ownership, I've stayed in the on the same path. I have never been bored, never. I've never felt unfulfilled. I never felt I needed anything else to do. The path that the good Lord put me on has always, the branches on the tree just continue to spread and spread. I've never been unfulfilled. I've never had a moment in my life where I said, oh my God, this is not what I want to do. I need to do something else. What do I do in the middle? It's what you call a midlife crisis. I never had that. So as much as we talk about four-year colleges and degrees, as much as we talk about technical colleges, people get into careers, get into situations they feel no growth, they don't like the people they work with, they begin not to like themselves, they become depressed, they become miserable. How do we address that issue to make sure, and not everybody's going to be fulfilled. Not everybody's going to be as fortunate as some of us to enjoy the career that we have and it continues to grow and get better for us. How do we make sure that someone starts in a career and don't get to the point where they regret that they're on the wrong path and they want to start over again? How does the technical experience prepare you differently than the college experience? So we're going to start with you, Dr. Harvey.
Sure. Well, I think, again, it goes back to giving that hands-on approach to education, if you will. So, you know, very early in a program of study, students are gaining exposure to what it's like to be in that career, if you will. And so, again, I think the more exposure that you can give a student to what it's going to be like in that career, it's going to help them make choices along the way. Now, do we have students that start off in one path and a couple classes into it, do they realize it's not a good fit for them? Absolutely. And then we have a responsibility to, again, create another higher level of exposure to help them identify what that might look like. And again, that's where advisors come in and other student services come into play. But I do think it is that high level of exposure that they're getting early on in the education that's going to help them better understand what this fulfilling life is going to be for them.
Carson.
I totally agree with everything you said, and I'll add to it. You know, a lot of times some of the students have also experienced something in life that changes the way that they view what they want to do. They may lose a parent and decide they want to do grief work, or they may go into a state of depression and decide they come out of it and decide they want to work with other people that are like this. And I think Daniel said is on point. Early on, we're teaching the principles and whatever the career is that you've selected or whatever the discipline is you've selected, so that you know what the principles are, what's going to guide that work. We expose you to different opportunities so you actually get hands-on experience. And I think this shapes how people decide if this is something they really want to do or they don't want to do.
You know, so much of the emphasis today on this conversation has been about what the professors and the executives of the university can do in the classroom. But the one thing that we're learning, and we talk about this thing we call continued education. For someone like myself, and I keep injecting myself in because I can only use the example of what has worked for me. You know, no matter what has happened to me from the time that I was in high school and college, I still read 2 books every week because it's a continuing of an education for me. There's so much that I must do to prepare myself to read, to understand, to make myself a better person. Because you can tell if a parent, there's so much that happens before the child ever gets to the classroom, because the achievement gap in education starts before the kid ever gets to kindergarten. It's what that kid reads. It's the example that the parent set. So some kid can go to that classroom depending on what their parent taught them, and they've read so much until they belong in the 3rd grade because they had better preparation. So the question, what we lead to now, how is it in any setting, whether it's the technical setting or the university setting, what is it that we must do as the individual? Because the best and the worst things that happens to us are the choices that we make along the way, no matter what the educational environment may be. How is it that we as the individual can better prepare ourselves for the technical experience? We'll start with you.
How can the individual best prepare themselves for the technical
And away from the
experience?
classroom, how can they better? Professor Daniels.
Research. And many of the students in high school or any member of society, usually they use the web. They are researching and going online, and we have to make sure that we are there for them. For example, I know that we have a variety of ways to promote our programs: Facebook, Twitter. So making sure that we are promoting our programs so that those students that are looking for a different direction in their lives or trying to decide which direction they should go will see Horry Georgetown Technical College and what makes us appealing, what makes us different. You also asked, and I'll just go back to the previous question, what makes us different? Hands-on. For example, in the nursing program, within 6 or 7 weeks, they are out into the community. They get an opportunity to see if this is the profession that they want to enter into. And so we're there. Our presence is in the community. We are helping with community services events. We are there for health screenings. I'm hoping that by our presence in the community that we could inspire other students to say, you know what, I met Miss Daniels today, and she's a nursing professor at Horry Georgetown Technical College. I want to be like her. So I think just being there, making the dream possible, perhaps just helping them create a vision. I think that's so important, and that's what makes technical colleges different, because we are here in the community, we live in the community, and we can help students become prepared to enter into a profession within 2 years versus a 4-year university. I had the pleasure of attending a 4-year university in North Carolina, but I have the opportunity to help students become a registered nurse in 2 years.
You know, I know we want to get to the distance education, but listen, is there a spiritual or moral component to education? Does that matter anymore? Does it serve any kind of purpose?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
In a word, yes. And I think that where we can influence, I don't know about the spiritual, I think in the moral, I think where we can have an influence is where the faculty and the staff interact with students professionally, caring about them, helping them to do right, if you will, meaning how do we help students to become better citizens?
Ethical, virtuous.
Yes,
There's nothing wrong with saying that.
That's
here.
right.
There's
This
nothing
is
wrong at all.
so critical. What you're talking about is really what you brought up is very, very critical, because that's what the employers are seeking. That's what we seek. We seek good people who come with good intentions and that they want to be ethical in the workplace. They want to be on time. They want to be respectful. They want to help to solve problems. So it's not just the technical skills. Although I think soft skills are probably described inaccurately. They're hard skills, but that's our moral obligation. And we take that very seriously in how we work with students, give them good customer relationship in terms of how we treat them, because we figure the way we come off with them is important for them to learn. Maybe not everybody's come from a family or the society where they're treated as equals. We treat people as equals, and the faculty treat the students as adults, and these are the settings you're going to go into, these are the people you're going to work with, and we want you to be successful, so they train them not only in those technical skills, but those skills that you're talking about, and to give them situations in which they're going to walk into the workplace, and they have to think critically about how to be with people, treat people, and how not only to perform the job, but how to perform it to the best of their ability for that company. That's a moral obligation.
Yeah. How important is it? One of the things that I really respect about the technical college experience is the application. You really get, it's not just theoretical. You really get to do the welding. You really get to do the carpentry. You really get to do the engineering. You really get to go into nursing. You really get to do the hands-on. Why is that so important?
I think it's important because the person actually gets the opportunity to experience and see if this is what they want to do. We can teach to those experiences. When they come back, if they have questions about how it went or what they could do better, you're able to process those different opportunities that we give them with them in the classroom, so that everybody's learning from those opportunities, so that you're just well trained and well prepared once you are employed.
So let's talk about the distance learning. Professor Hoppy, that's your bailiwick. Let's talk about it, the advantages and the disadvantages.
Sure. Well, I think when you take a look at the advantages of distance learning, it affords the student a higher level of flexibility. So we talked already about the demographic of a student at a technical college, and they have commitments outside of the classroom. They're already working full time. They have family commitments. They have commitments in their community. And they're looking for courses and programs of study that's going to afford them that high level of flexibility. So I very much see that as a pro. Historically, one of the cons around technical colleges and distance learning was that hands-on piece, if you will. The fact that certain programs may not afford themselves or be as conducive to the utilization of distance learning. Now, I will say we've seen some trends changing in that, specifically with the utilization of things such as hybrid and flipped approaches to education, and more recently experiential learning and competency-based education, and what that means to the student. So there's been pros and cons for a long time around distance learning, but I think the one thing that we are really seeing is institutions striving for that higher level of quality with what they're producing from a distance learning perspective, and understanding what the needs of that student really looks like in order to afford them that opportunity.
But Professor Daniel, how important is structure to an education?
Clarify that for a little bit for me.
Well, in the classroom, you know there's a structure.
Sure.
There's a teacher, there's a feedback, it's
Yep.
there. With the distance, what I call the virtual education, you're basically on your own.
Now that's not true.
Okay.
And I would suggest that institutions like HGTC, we're actually promoting a more structured approach to distance learning. So you're right. In some institutions look at kind of a self-paced approach. Here's the content, go forth and prosper, if you will, with taking your classes, and there might be some support there for you. More and more institutions are getting away from that approach. Why? Because we're seeing retention isn't there. We're seeing students aren't being successful. And the institutions that I've worked with around distance learning, we've taken a very consistent approach to the structure. So for example, at a prior institution, and we're starting to do some of that here, we went to a point where the courses looked exactly the same. They were laid out the same. The navigation was the same. Why did we do that? Because we wanted this experience that the student had to be very consistent. With that consistent experience, it didn't it was regardless if we were talking about biology or English or something else, we could get right to content because the student already was very familiar with how that class was going to navigate. So we are building in a high level of consistency in our online courses in order to make it a successful experience for our students.
What is the success? How do you judge the success of your overall program and what you're trying to accomplish through your students that graduate and move on?
Yeah. Well, I think it comes down to obviously looking at things like completion. So obviously if a student isn't completing a program of study, there might not be considered a level of success. But I think it comes down to what they're taking away from the experience. And when I say what they're taking away from the experience, I'm not necessarily only talking about things like learning objectives and skills that they've learned, but what are those non-academic skills that they've learned? So for example, regardless if you're in a classroom or if you're in an online course, you're learning to collaborate with others. You're learning technical skills that are going to apply on the job, whether it's how to best use a computer, how to use a piece of technology. And so I think being able to really support that well-rounded student that not only is gaining a high level of academic, but a lot of wonderful experiences that's going to benefit them in the career is really how we're going to judge if a student is successful.
Dr. Ford, what do you see as the future, and does it bode well that technical college will catch on like fire?
I believe we're there, and I think that the future is very bright, and we're going to grow tremendously.
Where is that growth?
Where's the growth? The growth is actually, we're circling back to our beginnings. When the college was created, we started with programs such as in hospitality, automotive, welding, plumbing, machine tool, HVAC. Those jobs sort of, then what happened with the two-year colleges that we got into the arena of associate in arts and associate in science, and we started to broaden into many other areas in the health sciences. The need locally, I'm speaking of, faded for some of the advanced manufacturing programs. But today, they're back, stronger than ever. And we can barely keep up the pace. And that's why I think that the future is very bright for the technical colleges. The statistics are there, that the 60–70% of the jobs out there need the post-secondary, but not necessarily all the way through fourth senior institutions, although I'm by any means, I appreciate a four-year institution, the education beyond that. But the immediate jobs, the hands-on, the skilled workforce is being provided by the technical colleges. The jobs have come back and the skills are needed, and we have an evolution now of the workforce because not only are the jobs here, but also the aging population has changed such that there are more jobs than ever before. And so the technical colleges are the place for so many of the students to be able to come, to be able to get the technical skills to go in all those areas I mentioned earlier. We've had a return back. We've had a return back to hospitality. We've had a return back to the advanced manufacturing programs, although under that name, they're still what they had been before in terms of titles of machine tool and CNC and programmable logic controllers, welding, advanced welding, nuclear welding. Those are the programs that are going to continue to grow, as well as technology. There's nothing today that technology is not touching. And a student can start with us and get a very strong basis in that, regardless of what program they're going in. They're using technology, whether it be based in the equipment that they're going to be using in the job place, or whether it's learning in English or mathematics, they're using the technology. So a long spin on that is that the future for the technical college looks very, very bright because the job skills are being taught by the technical colleges and the job market is there. We place students. We've got 95% placement rate. Our students are graduating and going immediately into the marketplace or going on for higher education.
You know, I cannot believe it, but we're about out of time. I just got lost at time. It's time to just gone everywhere. But the thing that we like to do, and every show is different for us, is that there is something that we touched on here during this last hour that you wanted to come back to, or there's something that you wanted to say that's important to this technical college experience. So we want to go to our panel and give you a chance to sign off on that issue, or come back to something that you heard that you want to build on further. So we'll start with you, Professor Causey.
Well, what I'd like to say to anybody who's watching is to do your research, as Professor Daniel said. If you're not in our community, or we have something that's attractive to you, consider distance learning. Think about the costs, and if you're passionate about what you want to do and you already know what you want to do, we're here to help you enter the workforce quickly. If you're not sure what you want to do, we have support services that can help you identify that. But I just think technical colleges are a great opportunity for people to get into the workforce quickly, and I'm excited about our growth.
Professor Hoppy.
Yeah, I'm going to resonate some of what we heard in regards to distance learning. It's a new world out there, and distance learning has been around for a while, but it's evolutionary. It's evolving constantly. And so I think students that might have had some reservations around what that might look like to be an online learner, I think they owe themselves the opportunity to research what it really means today, because I think it is very different today than it was even 3-5 years ago, and especially around the technical institutions, because we are looking at ways to appeal to the needs of those students, both in the classroom and in the online environment.
Professor Daniels.
It was mentioned that we have an aging population, and there's no different here, right here in Horry and Georgetown counties. I would like for everyone to know that our college is committed to providing a quality education for students to prepare them to enter into the workforce and be competent and safe providers. And we have many health science programs right here for those to meet the health needs of the aging population, from nursing to EMT to pharmacy tech, radiology, and there are numerous programs right here for you, and you can complete those in 2 years or less.
Dr. Ford, what is the cost?
The cost?
Yes.
The cost for a full year is a little over $4,000 if a student is going full-time. So if they are going for an associate degree, it's going to be about $8,000. That's a 2-year program. Many of our programs are 1 year and less, so they can accomplish their degrees, get certifications in 1 year at $4,000.
Is there such a thing as capacity?
Capacity?
Yes.
Not for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So
We'll take everybody that comes to our doors.
right. So, because you really don't have dormitories.
No, we're not allowed by law here.
Yeah. Explain that. It's important for people to understand that.
There is one 2-year college in the state that is allowed by law to have a dormitory, and that is Orangeburg Calhoun Technical College. And that was in the early laws to be able to create actual location dormitory for students who may not have been able to afford to have a place to live. But it's just not, I'm not so sure. It might be feasible for us to have dorms, but we've never really competed.
But it certainly cuts down on the cost.
Would it cut down on
It does cut down on the cost.
Cost?
For the student.
Well, most of our students commute.
Yes.
So that's not necessarily because they're living at home. They have families, so I don't know that it would cut down the cost for our students as much.
Professor Daniels, why do you think you have such a high percentage of minorities that attend? 25%, that's pretty significant.
Because we are presenting opportunities for first-generation college students. We are there to make sure that they receive the support services that they need. I think once they're in the doors of Horry Georgetown Technical College, they will find that we care about them and that we will be there to assist them, whether that is in, if it doesn't happen to be in nursing, we'll let them know that we have other programs for you. And by all means, Horry Georgetown Technical College faculty are in the community. So, for example, in Georgetown County, we're right there in the hospitals with Georgetown counties. Georgetown County patients see us right there at the bedside with them. So I think for minorities, it is At Ord Georgetown Technical College, the students see minority faculty, and I think it's always good to have a positive role model. And they also have supportive staff and supportive administration that reaches out into the community to let them know it doesn't matter what your race, creed, your background is. We're going to help you achieve your goals right here at Ord Georgetown Technical College.
You know, I want to thank our national audience for joining us this evening. Certainly, we all learned something new here tonight. That's what life is about. But I really want to thank Professor Causey, Hoppy, Dr. Fold, and Professor Bailiff for joining us. You know, I got to tell you something. You know, it's very difficult to Dr. Ford to really criticize anyone that's offering an education, giving someone an opportunity to better their lives and acquire skills that they did not have before. Because the best and the worst case scenario, to me, there's no worst case scenario, because kids need to respect education and they need to respect learning. They need to improve their skills, because as far as we're concerned, you can never have enough skills, because we're in an information economy now. It may be something different 10 or 15 years from now, and it will require different skills. And the fact, and you almost teach the disciplines of the STEM, the science, the technology, the engineering, and math, because some of the disciplines that you have require all of those. So I want to thank you, salute you, and celebrate Ord Georgetown Technical College for what they're doing in the area of advancing education, advancing knowledge, and giving people a chance to continue their education. On behalf of all of us here at WWMB21 and WPDE-ABC, I'm Armstrong Williams, your host, and have a good night, and learn more about this online. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes. That's so fast.